Soccer for Success Coach-Mentor Blueprint defines your role as a coach through the metaphor of building a house. Just like a house is built from the bottom up, we want you to thoughtfully construct your coach-mentor-mentee relationship. Our blueprint has a foundation and a house that builds throughout your season. Specific actions are associated with specific time frames within your season because that is when those actions are most vital. However, you need to embody all the characteristics listed throughout the entire season. Understanding the youth we serve is about gathering knowledge about the communities in which you will serve and your mentees. Those of you that have had experience working with youth in at-risk communities know that they may face a lack of physical activity, limited or no access to learned sport, and high rates of poverty. Many of the communities that we serve may lack resources to support the overall mission of the Soccer for Success programs such as food deserts and a lack of safe places to play. Through this process, you will develop cultural competence, which is to know about, be sensitive to, and have respect for different cultures. In addition to being culturally competent, you must also gain an understanding of the psychological and physical characteristics of your youth and ensure that the program you run is developmentally appropriate for the age that you serve. Although it is extremely important to gather knowledge about the deficits of the communities that you'll be working in and the cultural and developmental norms of the youth that you serve, it is important that you do not use this information to make blanket assumptions about their needs and, more importantly, about their abilities. Being strength-based is a mindset. It is the lens that we want you to use when you approach your season. Don't approach your youth feeling sorry for them and what they lack. Focus on their strengths. For example, think about the fact that they show up to practice, are going to school, and have a parent or caretaker that signed them up for the program. In addition to focusing on individual strengths, identify the strengths that lie within and around the communities that you are working in. For example, recreation centers, food banks, and field space. It is important that you provide a solid foundation for the relationship that you will build with your mentees. As a Soccer for Success mentor, you will need to make sure to embody all the qualities in the foundation throughout the entire season. The first quality that we're going to discuss is positive communication. Positive communication means being supportive, highlighting when skills are learned, giving high fives, and showing positive communication verbally, non-verbally, and even in written form. Comments like good job and nice try are important to creating a positive team culture. However, we want to be more intentional about how we positively communicate with our mentees. And we want to do that in 3 different ways. Be specific, so rather than saying good job, say, Sharon, that was a great pass, way to lock your ankle. When communicating, we still want to keep that strength-based lens. So when communicating and motivating your youth, you want to highlight the things that they are doing well and then communicate how they can build off of those strengths to achieve the success that they desire. So for example, Teddy, that was a great pass, way to lock your ankle. Next time, also point your plant foot. We also want to be curious. Ask questions of your youth. Use guided discovery where appropriate. Show your participants that you are interested in their lives. As coach mentors, we must ensure that young people know they are valued and heard. Empathy is the idea that we are truly understanding what someone is feeling. We don't just feel sorry for them that it is happening. Oftentimes we confuse the meaning of empathy and sympathy. So luckily we have a great video that will help us decipher the two.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Renee helped us understand empathy. We know modeling is a crucial way to teach, and empathy is no different, but it's also important to actively teach it. When an incident occurs, we want to label the emotion and the action that it caused. If one of your participants called the other a name, this is how to address it. Mike, Sarah is sad. You hurt her when you called her that name. We also want to process through the child's lens. Always give them the perspective through their own eyes. How would it feel if someone said that to you? Often, depending on the developmental age, the response may be, I wouldn't care. So again, label the action. So you would not care if someone told you that they didn't want to be your friend? Keep in mind that due to the developmental age, you may not always get the understanding that you are striving for. We also want to create a place where both children can safely express their feelings. Do not tell them to suck it up or get over it. When they feel hurt, let them feel hurt. Let them know that it's important to feel and express that emotion. By understanding and feeling, they will be more likely to be empathetic and understand how others feel. And finally, we want to show compassion non-verbally. Mirror through your facial expressions compassion and care. Sometimes when very bad things happen to children, they don't know how to understand and read facial expressions. Teach them through modeling what the emotions look like. Self-care has two parts. We know that it's difficult to be empathetic, and in fact to be a good coach at all, if you are not taking care of yourself psychologically and physically. Secondly, self-care means being a role model for your participants, practicing what you preach. For example, when you're around your youth, you are stressing the importance of living a healthy lifestyle and then showing up to practice with burger and fries. Next, we're going to talk about empowering and supporting our youth. Coach mentors should always seek ways to empower their youth to be their own agents of change and teach them how to manage and solve conflicts in healthy and adaptive ways. We want to empower our youth by giving them both a voice and a choice. By voice, we mean encouraging the youth to share their opinions. So during their opening circle, we want to have an open discussion about whatever that nutrition point is that day. Another way to give youth a voice during practice is to allow them to pick the warm-up and opening circle and actually lead those activities. By choice, we mean young people should be involved in decision-making. So give them decision-making in team issues, practices, and strategies. When you take on new responsibilities and address issues that they may face on their own, you must also remain there to support them. Through these new challenges, provide youth with positive communication. For example, if you were teaching a youth to ride his or her bike for the first time without training wheels, you wouldn't just take the training wheels off. Put the child on the bike and hope everything works out. You want to be there by their side, encouraging, perhaps physically balancing them out, so that they can experience success and gain the confidence to eventually learn to ride on their own. With this being said, we do not expect you all to be experts or guidance counselors on all topics and issues. However, we do expect you to prepare and arm yourself with resources in order to support your youth as you did to prepare for your season. This allows you again to connect them to tools and resources that they need to be successful. And finally, we want to make sure to establish boundaries with our youth. Boundaries in this context are norms, expectations, and rules around your practice and program. Boundaries are important to guide appropriate coach-mentor-mentee behavior. As coach-mentors, you are not friends with your participants, nor are you their school teacher or parent. You need to help define this new coach-mentor-mentee relationship for your young people. In order to support that appropriate relationship, establish boundaries in these areas: conduct, contact, and communication. So contact refers to the frequency, type, and method. How often can your students contact you? For this particular sphere, we want to refer back to whatever the school or site, a recreation center's rules are on physical contact with students. Some sites will allow you to hug children, other sites will only allow a side hug, and still other schools will allow a high five. So find out what the rule is at your school. We also want to set expectations as they relate to how your participants treat each other and you. This should be done on the first day of practice, and these behavior norms should be reinforced on a daily basis. The third sphere is communication. For instance, we want to create expectations around what topics are acceptable for youth to discuss in your program. Another important topic is discussing the expectation of confidentiality. As your youth begin to open up to you, they may come to you with serious personal situations. If you deem them in danger, it is your responsibility to report it to the appropriate staff and the authorities. Make sure that they understand reporting is the protocol, so they don't feel betrayed by their coach-mentor. Now, I don't think that that's a discussion that has to occur at the beginning of a season, but if a student begins to tell you something that is a serious personal situation, please make them aware of that expectation of confidentiality. Throughout the season, we want to continue to maintain boundaries. We do this by enforcing rules fairly among all participants and ensuring that you are also following the boundaries you set. Even if we establish and maintain clear boundaries, we know that ultimately our youth may push or cross the boundaries. We want to address the crossing of boundaries in 4 ways. Identify the behavior that needs to change, and don't make it personal about the child. Make sure that you are specific about what they did wrong and why they should respect your team's boundaries. Reassert the expectation. Again, discuss the boundaries for your program and let them know that boundaries are in place for a reason. Affirm your commitment. Do not waver. Stay committed to enforcing your boundaries. And also be curious. When boundaries are crossed, recognize that like most disruptive behavior, kids are trying to fill an unmet need. Ask questions to find out the source of their behaviors. If necessary, identify resources to connect them to. During weeks 1 and 2, we're going to be focusing on our first impression. When first interacting with your participants, it's important that you have a positive attitude and show a genuine interest in getting to know them. Pay attention to nonverbal cues when first approaching your young people to ensure that they are comfortable and that you aren't crossing any personal boundaries. These are a few different ways that you can put your best foot forward, including being positive, learning everyone's names, being curious, asking questions and learning more about your youth, and creating a safe, positive, and fun environment. During weeks 3 and 4, we want to focus on sustaining the connection. There are a couple of different ways that we will do this. The first is to be consistent. As a coach mentor, you want to continue to live up to the high standards you set for yourself and your team at the beginning of the season. During this time in building your relationship with young people, they will test you. They will cross your boundaries to see if you will waver and are not completely convinced that you will make yourself available before and after practice like you did the first 2 weeks. By providing consistency and being something and someone that your participants can count on, this will ensure that you will gain their trust and foster the development of your coach-mentor-mentee relationship. Additionally, research shows that consistently spending time with a caring adult in a mutually trusting relationship can help youth develop a sense of positive self-worth that will help them develop resiliency. And through this positive relationship, a child begins to feel a greater sense of social acceptance. The second way that we're going to work to strengthen the connection is through goal setting. We wait until weeks 3 and 4 to set goals because now you have developed a sense of trust and a rapport with your young people. You will have the opportunity to build your participants' individual competencies by guiding them through the goal-setting process. At this stage in your coach-mentor-mentee relationship, you will want to make on-the-field goals, such as working on a soccer skill, improving their fitness, or related nutrition goals. When setting goals with your participants, it is important to allow your mentee to take the lead on setting the personal goal for themselves in order to create a sense of ownership, which will ensure that they will be motivated. It is equally as important to ensure that their goals remain personal and that they are not comparing themselves to their teammates. They should be focusing on improving their own skills, aerobic capacity, nutrition, and nutrition habits. Lastly, after guiding them through the goal-setting process, make sure to check in on them in order to ensure that they are achieving their own personal goals. During weeks 5 through 10, we're going to focus on sustaining the connection. In weeks 5 to 11, be intentional about the impact that you will make on your players' lives and how they will develop as people. You want to make sure that you think through this process. A key to achieving this is building off of the success achieved through the on-the-field goal-setting process to guide your participants through translating the process to positive youth development outcomes. We are all here because we know that there are skills and lessons that you learn through playing sport that can be easily applied to your everyday life. These include teamwork, high effort, sportsmanship, empathy, commitment, patience, resilience, and positive self-talk. Engage participants in a discussion about their goals and overall progress as a player. Label the skills and personality traits that have been effective while they have been working toward achieving their on-field goals, and encourage them to make off-field goals such as academic behavior and healthy lifestyle goals. Guide them through this process and encourage them to apply their new skills and personality traits to their everyday lives. During week 12, we want to focus on honoring the connection. Now that we have successfully made a positive connection with our participants, it is important to honor your relationship and the work put in by all parties by properly closing out your season. For youth who have experienced trauma or abandonment, including many young people who are in foster care or are involved in the juvenile justice system, the end of a mentoring relationship can be especially difficult. It is essential to have a formal process that helps both the mentor and mentee move along after the relationship has ended. You must be intentional about preparing them for the transition that they will face now that the season has ended and provide them with proper closure. The progress that your mentee has made as a result of your mentorship is something that you want to be sure continues even after the program ends. Prepare them for this adjustment by setting up final check-ins with your mentees. These check-ins will be more intimate than the end-of-season festival and should happen separately. During these check-ins, discuss any challenges that some of the youth may have faced and how they were able to overcome these challenges. Ask your participants about their plans now that your program has ended. If possible, provide them with guidance and connect them with resources as needed. Challenge your mentees to set goals to work on until the following Soccer for Success season. This will keep your mentees task-oriented, allow them to think and plan for the future, and increase their likelihood of returning to the program next season. Though the blueprint only lasts one season, the Soccer for Success program includes 2 12-week seasons each year. It is our hope that both you and your participants will return each season. When you are faced with a mix of returnees and new participants, it is important that you start your spring season from the beginning of the blueprint with those new participants while continuing to honor the relationship built with returnees.